Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I've been sitting here thinking about that June 5th episode of General Hospital, and it really hit me how Michael's big plan to push Willow and Chase together is starting to look a whole lot shakier than it did just a few weeks ago. On paper, it sounded clever enough. If folks started believing Willow was stepping out on him with Chase, she could lose that council seat. The custody fight would get even uglier, and she'd be stuck explaining herself in a scandal she never saw coming. Michael figured the more he could make that story stick, the better his chances. But watching it all play out, I couldn't help thinking the very thing he's counting on might be the thing that brings the whole scheme tumbling down. The more people he keeps dragging into this mess, the less control he's got over where it goes. That's the part that jumped out at me this week. Michael's been working hard behind the scenes to make Willow and Chase look closer than they ought to be. Every little nudge, every chance meeting he tries to arrange, it's all meant to plant that seed of doubt in people's minds. And for a while, it seemed like it might just work. But now Brook Lynn is starting to notice things. She's not the type to let something like that slide without poking around. And the way she's looking at the two of them tells me she's got questions she's not asking out loud yet. Once somebody like Brook Lynn starts sniffing around, it's only a matter of time before the story Michael once told starts turning into a story he can't control. What really got me was how Tracy's offhand remarks ended up giving Michael an opening he didn't even have to work for. She said something that fit right into the picture he was trying to paint, and he just let it sit there. On the surface, it looked like things were falling into place for him, but that's the trouble with these family schemes, isn't it? The moment you start counting on other people's words and assumptions to do your dirty work, you're no longer the one steering the wagon. Tracy didn't mean to help him, not really. She was just being Tracy. And Michael stood there letting it happen like it was all part of, some grand design. And the more I watched, the more it felt like he's not just fighting for custody anymore. It's starting to feel personal, like he's enjoying the idea of Willow looking bad a little too much. That's where the real danger is, if you ask me. When a plan stops being about protecting your kids and starts feeling like payback, it stops being careful. Michael's pulling more and more folks into the middle of it, and every new person adds another chance for something to slip. Brook Lynn's suspicions are already bubbling up. She's got that sharp eye of hers, and she cares about Willow in her own way. If she keeps connecting the dots the way I think she will, she could end up being the one who pulls the whole curtain back on what Michael's been doing. And wouldn't that be something? All those weeks of quiet maneuvering, and it might be somebody on the inside who brings it crashing down. I keep coming back to how fragile these things are once they get out of one person's hands. Michael thought he could keep it neat and tidy, just him moving pieces around on the board. But life in Port Charles doesn't work that way, and neither do families. The more threads he ties together, the more likely one of them is going to snag on something he didn't see coming. And when that happens, it won't just be Willow who pays the price. It'll be everybody who got pulled into the story he tried to write for them. That's the part that's got me thinking this plan of his might be carrying the seeds of its own trouble, right there in plain sight. But here's where Michael's plan started running into trouble he didn't see coming. He figured Brook Lynn would play the part he'd written for her without asking too many questions. He expected her to get suspicious, to get mad, and to start putting pieces together, whether they were real or not. And to be fair, she did some of that at first. She marched right up to him and told him straight out that Willow was after her husband. Michael probably thought he had her right where he wanted her. Then Tracy stepped in and made everything even sweeter for him without even trying. She caught sight of Chase and Willow together and went straight to the worst possible conclusion. Before long, she was practically ready to draw up divorce papers on Brook Lynn's behalf. Michael could hardly hide how pleased he was. You could see it on his face. For a minute there, it looked like everything was falling right into place just the way he'd hoped. But then Brook Lynn did something Michael never counted on. She actually listened to Chase. She heard him out. Really heard him. And even more than that, she started wondering whether her own family was coloring the way she was looking at things. That's the part that changed everything. She didn't go flying off the handle the way Michael expected. Instead, she slowed down long enough to ask herself if she was being pushed into seeing something that might not be there. That's what makes Brook Lynn different from the role Michael tried to hand her. She's not the kind of woman who lets other people's anger or assumptions do her thinking for her. She's got enough sense to pause and look around before she decides who to trust and what to believe. And that pause, that moment of doubt is exactly the kind of thing that can unravel a plan like Michael's. The more he tries to pull people into his story, the more likely it is that somebody like Brook Lynn will stop and ask the one question he doesn't want anybody asking. But the longer I sit with the story, the more it feels like Michael's plan has taken a turn he might not even realize himself. At the start, it was easy to see it as a father doing whatever it took to protect his children. You could tell yourself every quiet move, every little push was just part of that bigger fight over custody. Most folks would understand that kind of desperation. But lately, the whole thing has started to feel different. It's not just about keeping his kids safe anymore. It's starting to look like he wants to make Willow pay, and that changes everything about how the story sits with me. He's paying investigators to go digging into things that maybe don't need digging. He's setting up situations and then waiting to see what happens, almost like he's hoping something will turn up. He's gathering what he calls evidence before there's even anything solid there to collect. That's not the same as trying to find the truth. That's the kind of thing a person does when they've already made up their mind what they want the truth to be. And once a plan starts feeling that way, it stops being careful. It starts being something else, something harder to watch without feeling a little uneasy. That shift is exactly why Brook Lynn has become more dangerous to Michael than he probably understands. She's the one person caught right in the middle of all this mess, with every reason to keep looking and asking questions. She's already shown she can slow down when everybody else is rushing to judgment. She listened to Chase instead of just believing what she was being fed. She started wondering whether her own family's anger was coloring what she saw. That kind of thinking is rare when feelings are running high, and it makes her a real threat to the story Michael has been trying to build. If Brook Lynn ever puts it together that somebody behind the scenes has been pulling strings and pushing people into corners they didn't ask for, she might stop chasing after Willow and Chase completely. She might turn that sharp eye of hers in a whole new direction. And if that happens, Michael could find himself being the one under the microscope. The idea that his own cousin, somebody he thought he could count on to stay angry at the right people, might end up being the one who sees through the whole thing, well, that's the kind of twist these stories love to deliver. What gets me most is how easy it is for these plans to grow bigger than the person who started them. Michael keeps bringing more folks into the middle of it, thinking he can keep control. But every new person adds another chance for somebody to notice the pieces don't quite fit. Brook Lynn isn't the type to stay quiet or stay blind just because it's easier. She's already proven she can pause and think for herself when it matters. And that pause might be the very thing that brings the whole scheme to a stop. In the end, that's what worries me most about where this is heading. When somebody starts treating family like pieces they can move around on a board, it rarely stays simple for long. The more Michael tries to steer the outcome and make sure things land exactly where he wants them, the more he's giving other people reasons to look closer than he ever intended. And if Brook Lynn is the one who finally sees the full picture, Michael may end up learning the hard way that the person who brings his plan crashing down isn't the woman he was aiming at. It could be somebody standing right beside him in the family, somebody he never expected to turn around and look back at him. That's the part I keep coming back to, and I have a feeling we're not done seeing how it all plays out.